You've seen Candida warnings everywhere, but when your belly bloats and your brain fogs up, jumping straight to antifungals is like treating the smoke, not the fire itself. Candida is just a signal of systems, especially in your gut, out of balance. When you see how the clues of Candida line up, suddenly the same five symptoms can start pointing in completely different directions. I'm Dr. Kenny, root cause health detective and IFM certified functional medicine practitioner, and after 8 years in practice, I decode this problem all the time. In the next few minutes, I'll show you which 5 Candida clues earn testing and which ones might need a different approach. If this resonates with you, share it or tap the like button. Help others to stop guessing and start investigating deeper when it comes to Candida. Here's how I like to think about this. Your symptoms aren't immediately a problem to solve. They're a story that your body is telling. With every person who walks into my practice saying something like, I bloat all the time, or I'm feeling very foggy, nothing's helping, my first instinct isn't to simply label it. It's to ask, why are these things happening? What is the context? What's the environment? When did this start? What happened right before or leading up to this? The reason why questioning is so important with Candida is that in the functional medicine space, it's sometimes referred to as the great mimicker. And that's because some seemingly unrelated symptoms can all be traced back to Candida depending on the person and the situation. For one person, it can be the bloating and the brain fog, or fatigue and itching, recurrent infections. But in other ways, it can show up as FODMAP sensitivity, or blood sugar imbalances and sugar cravings, even joint pain and skin issues. So not only can the symptoms and manifestations of Candida be different, but the root causes driving its overgrowth or invasion can also be just as varied. Different underlying causes, different treatments, and they must be tailored to the individual person experiencing Candida, not just a blanket treatment for all. That's why this kind of functional medicine detective work matters. This questioning and logic when it comes to Candida is figuring out whether you're looking at Candida or something else entirely. And that's why I don't just see a symptom and prescribe an antifungal herb or similar. I try to read the context and the entire individual environment first. Let's talk about how Candida often takes center stage. Most people think Candida invasion is a random event, but that's not really how it works. Think of your gut like a neighborhood. Normally, the neighbors are made of good bacteria, good yeasts, including Candida, and other organisms too, and it's running relatively smoothly in the neighborhood. Then a triggering event runs through. It could be antibiotics or something similar, and they don't just kill the bad guys or the bad neighbors, they flatten the whole neighborhood. And the housing, of course, is then emptied and the community is relatively gone. Stress hormones, disrupted sleep, sugar dysregulation, these all send signals for Candida, a specific yeast, to fill that empty space and fill the void. So it's not invasion per se, it's seizing of an opportunity. Research shows that even a short course of antibiotics, yes, we know affects the bacteria in the gut, but it sometimes has lasting changes even beyond the bacterial changes in the fungal community, and that includes Candida. This signal over time can shift Candida from its mutual benefit relationship to a more competitive or invasive one. Or another way to put this is the damage to your fungal ecosystem in the microbiome oftentimes outlasts the damage to the bacterial environment in the microbiome. This is where treating Candida, whether conventionally or naturally, often goes sideways. Once yeast is seen or cultured, or there's evidence in the urine, for instance, a patient is immediately prescribed antifungals. But even if you take out this yeast overgrowth, the terrain underneath stays the same and allows for the potential for recurrence to come back, possibly even stronger than ever. And this is where it can get into a very vicious and relatively hopeless cycle, because the solution isn't about fighting harder, it's about rebuilding and restoring the resilience underneath. By the way, if you appreciate the science and you want to see the research that I used in this video, I've compiled a short research summary that has some great actionable insights as well as easy to digest summaries of the major findings in these articles. The link is in the pinned comment and the description below. So let's talk now about reading the Candida clues. The full list is quite big, but I want to talk about 5 specific patterns that, when they cluster together in particular, tell me that Candida is definitely worth investigating. We're going to talk about each one, but we're also going to go through what else it might be if these symptoms show up in isolation. The first pattern we'll talk about is bloating that's triggered by carbs. You might eat pasta or bread or something similar, and 20 minutes later feel bloated up like a balloon. And while this can be a pretty classic sign of Candida overgrowth, it could mean that your body is struggling to digest a certain type of carb. It could be a FODMAP sensitivity or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. The easiest way to start differentiating for yourself is to try eating mostly easy to digest foods. Think soups, stews, slow-cooked meals, for instance. If your symptoms drop 50%, even 90%, then you know it's probably a processing and digestive function issue, not as much Candida. But if you're also experiencing some of the next few patterns, then the Candida suspicion definitely rises. The next pattern that's sometimes attributed to Candida is brain fog or fatigue after meals. If your energy crashes or you feel brain fog after meals, especially about an hour afterwards, this could be a sign of Candida overgrowth, but there are other doors to consider as well. Blood sugar dysregulation is one of the first that comes to mind, so early insulin resistance is a consideration here. Also, food sensitivities. That low energy could be the immune system going into hyperdrive while it's trying to combat or control a certain amount of inflammation and immune response. Or it could be part of a Candida pattern, especially if it's paired with the 2 next points we'll talk about. Context matters. The third pattern is persistent itching, and this may be the skin, the scalp, the privates. This one deserves some particular attention because this is where Candida can become more visible. Your body's showing you where Candida is overgrown. It may be in the form of recurrent yeast infections or thrush in the mouth that keeps coming back even after treatment. And this could mean that the immune system is telling you something important. But the itch could be something different. It could be more parasitic or protozoa-driven, or it could be histamine intolerance, for instance, especially if it's worse at night. But if it is paired with some of these other symptoms that we're talking about, this is where this suspicion continues to grow. The fourth pattern I often see is recent antibiotics or steroid use. This is one of the ones that I flag and watch the closest. Antibiotics don't discriminate, and we talked earlier about how it shifts the fungal microbiome just as much as the bacterial microbiome, if not more. And it can shift the fungal ecosystem from a mutualistic partnership into a more competitive one, and that's the case with Candida. Steroids work through a slightly different door. They suppress immune function broadly, and without a resilient and robust immune response, Candida, oftentimes in its more invasive form, is not kept in check. So the timeline that I look at is if you've been on antibiotics or steroids within the last 3 to 6 months, and this does include inhaled forms of steroids, like with common over-the-counter allergy medications. Timeline is everything here. And the fifth pattern that I see with Candida is the relapse story. This one often seals the deal for me. If you've been on a history of antifungals, say nystatin or maybe something like tea tree oil, your symptoms dropped initially, you felt better for some time, and then they come back. This pattern tells me something more specific, is you've perhaps addressed the fungus with these antifungals, but you didn't rebuild the terrain that didn't allow them to overgrow on the other side of those antifungals. Or maybe a slightly different situation where you have resolved Candida well and treated the symptoms, but then we're on antibiotics or steroids again, and the terrain essentially reset. You're looking for a cluster of symptoms, not one pattern alone here. All 5 of these together, or what I see with most patients, is around 3 or 4 of the 5. And testing and treatment becomes a lot more focused on Candida as it rises up the priority list. By the way, if you appreciate this systems-based approach to functional medicine, and want to see about advanced testing for Candida, I offer a free health mystery map call to patients in Texas, California, and Florida where I practice. If this interests you, the link is in the description below. So we have a high suspicion of Candida. Now what? If this is starting to resonate, here's where we start. First, I like to draw attention to ecosystem and environment, and blood sugar stability is one of the most important things for multiple reasons. Eating a foundation of protein, colorful fruits and vegetables helps to take stress off the systems from a blood sugar balance perspective, but also a stress chemistry and oxidative stress perspective. Next is to really focus on your circadian rhythms because this sends additional safety and resilience cues to the stress systems and the immune response. And of course, there's more targeted suggestions based on the actual root cause drivers for each individual case of Candida, because one person's root causes may be very different from another's. It's important to not throw the kitchen sink at Candida. One intervention at a time, maybe for 2 weeks at a time, measure and then reassess, because when we're doing systems-based work, oftentimes it's about the cumulative added benefit over time. And lastly, advanced functional lab testing can go a long way as well. If suspicion for Candida is high, testing such as organic acids testing or fungal and mycotoxin testing can be a very beneficial piece of the puzzle so you know exactly which organisms or overgrowths you're dealing with. And if this kind of root cause and systems-based thinking lands for you, go ahead and hit subscribe. I do deep dives like this on different conditions every week. If today got you thinking differently about Candida, the next piece of the puzzle is to understand the 3 sides of what I call the Candida triangle. And in this video, that's exactly what we're going to go over. I'm Dr. Kenny, Root Cause Health Detective. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.